Hi, my name is Abby Squibb, and this is my Stags and Hens timeline as a part of my final major project. If you don't know, Stags and Hens is the play that we've been tasked to perform and kind of create throughout this process, and as one of the tasks to kind of help us explore and learn deeper about the whole play so that we can perform it as well as we can. One of the tasks is to create a timeline of all of the key events in the play. So in this video I will be detailing all of the main points that happens, and specifically also the main points for my character, who is Linda. Okay, so for context, before we actually start getting into Act 1 of the play and all of the events that happen, we've got some context, which is written ever so lovely by me with my beautiful handwriting. I apologise for my handwriting throughout this video. Just listen to me speak. This is just kind of it's just there, background. But for the context, we have kind of the two main characters in it. Even if they don't have the most lines, they kind of lead on a lot of the aspects of the play. So we have a visitor, apparently. Hi, Daisy. Yeah. I am home alone at the moment, so it is just me and my little puppy, Daisy. Daisy, do you like the wall? Anyways, for context, if you hear, we've got Linda and Dave, who are the bride and groom to be, the fiancés. And both of them are having the stag night on the exact same night. And they both end up going to the exact same club, but they don't realise it. It's not necessarily planned out, but it just happens. So in the kind of brides part, the women's part of the play, we've got Bernie, Maureen, Carol and Frances. So they're all of the bridesmaids for Linda. It's a little bit of background. Bernie's the kind of leader of the group, the funny, provocative woman who's just full on. Maureen, who's the youngest, who's the little bit of the baby of the group, very hopeful, romantic, but lacks a little bit of common sense. Then you have Carol, who is the romantic of the group, looking for a man, and is quite blunt, as you can see throughout the play in some of her lines. And then Frances, who is Linda's best mate, and is just kind of trying to make sure everything goes okay. But they all are, really. They want to make sure that Linda gets married because they think that it's a great thing. But yeah, and then moving on to the men's side, we have Dave, the groom, and then all of his groomsmen, Cav, Eddie, Robbie and Billy. Cav is the artistic little, the actual ladies' man, whereas Robbie believes he's the ladies' man and tries to get all of the women, but doesn't always succeed. Then you've got Billy, who, similar to Maureen, in a sense, lacks the common sense, but has a lot of the really funny lines. And Eddie, who's the alpha male of the whole group, is running the whole thing, is saying what's going on, and yeah, lad, beer, no emotions. That's him. So yeah, all of these people end up at the exact same club. But also at the club performing is Peter, who is Linda's ex-boyfriend. They were together in school, as we learn from the kind of lines that they have with each other, and haven't seen each other since Peter moved away to London to pursue his singing career. He asked Linda to come with him, but she didn't. So they end up bumping into each other at some point in the play. Okay, so now that we've got the context of the whole play and we kind of know the characters, we can actually start looking at Act 1 and the timeline of it all. So to begin, we see both the Stags and Hens enter the club toilets. The whole play takes place in those toilets and specifically begins in them. We don't really see them in the club at any points. We just hear about them going there. So they start off in these toilets and we're introduced to the characters, like their personalities and the relationships between them. So a very key point to this play is the fact that there is a hierarchy, in a sense. So overall, there's the top person in each of the groups and the one who listens to them specifically. So for example, with the men, like I said when we were talking about them, Eddie is the kind of alpha male of the group. He uses violence and his words to kind of get everyone to listen to him. because he feels like he's right, blah blah blah, all of this stuff. And while their other characters, May speaks back to him, so Robbie, for example, tries to kind of have a word with him. Billy, at the bottom of the hierarchy, listens to everything he says, agrees with him, thinks he's right. Similarly, we see that in the women. So with Bernie, we have her right at the top. She's the alpha woman of the group, and while she doesn't use her words specifically like Eddie does, she doesn't threaten with violence. She just has this kind of air of confidence about her. She says what she thinks, she stands by what she does, and we see that as well with Linda, who kind of speaks back to her, doesn't really take her shit in a sense, sticks by what she knows and what she believes. Whereas you have Maureen right at the bottom, who just agrees with everything Bernie says, thinks she's right, doesn't really know what's going on, but just believes Bernie because she has that air of confidence about her. So we see that a little bit more. We see interactions between characters. We see the kind of comedic moments, which is the kind of basis of the play. The play is a comedy in itself, but as it goes through, we see those more serious moments, specifically in Act 2. So we don't really see this as much in this timeline, but we will see it more. Before we continue on, I forgot to mention, there is a reason why there's kind of two different colours here, and while we don't really see it as much in Act 1, we will see it more in Act 2, this kind of colour code, because the blue is kind of the main points of the play, everything that's happening, the main plot points, whereas the purpley pink, it was supposed to be pink, but we move, is Linda's moments, my character's main moments, because obviously that's more of the focus of my final major projects, is exploring my character in this exercise. So yes, that's the first point. Then we move on to point number 2, where we see that the groom, Dave, is paralytic drunk. So the play begins with the women entering the bathrooms. They have their moment. I forgot to mention this point here, from this point. Linda immediately goes into the bathroom and hides in there for most of the rest of this, which is why there's not many kind of pink moments for Linda, but she hides in the bathroom for a reason that we will find out just later. But yeah, moving back on to point number 2, when the boys enter the bathrooms, we see that Dave is paralytic drunk. And when I say paralytic drunk, at least in our production, Dave is basically dead in the arms of the boys, bringing him in, trying to carry him, in all sense of that. So we get that for Dave. That's our kind of only interaction with him on stage. He doesn't really come out much because he is paralytic drunk in the back of the bathrooms. But similarly to the girls, we see the characters, the relationships, the hierarchy introduced, not only in this, but also throughout. The Act 1 is kind of setting the scene, building up the story, building up the characters before you go into the main plot points. So moving on to point 3, Maureen predicts and foreshadows Linda seeing Dave. So as all of the women are talking about Linda getting married and all of this great stuff that's going on, Maureen has a line in which she says, "Hey, wouldn't it be awful if the fella showed up here as well?" And as you can see, I'm doing the accent because the accent is ingrained into my head, which is great. I love a Scouse accent. Moving on to point 4, the men go onto the dance floor, leaving Dave in the bathrooms because he is, in fact, paralytic drunk. But it's important for this point, which I will get onto in a second. Hold your horses. We will get there. Don't you worry. Point 5, which is Linda. So Linda finally leaves the bathroom. This is the last scene for the women. So she stays in there for a little while, but she comes out, immediately goes, let's go out on the dance floor, guys. Let's go boogie. I hope Linda doesn't boogie like that, because but Linda exits the bathroom, kind of says, "Okay, everyone, let's go." And all the girls are like, "Whoa, Linda, what about your hair? What about your makeup?" Which, thanks, guys. I thought I was looking all right. Then the rest of the women, except for Linda and Frances, leave to the dance floor. while they have both gone, Linda and Francis have a conversation where it is revealed by Linda, at least not specifically, but it's more hinted at very, very obviously, that she does not want to get married or is having second thoughts about getting married. And the way she reveals this is not by specifically saying it to Francis, because I think in a sense she doesn't want to admit it out loud. I think that's quite a difficult thing for her to admit, because she's been stuck in it for so long and she knows her friends won't necessarily agree. But she talks about Dave and her getting engaged and how it happens. And she sets the scene saying that they were both dancing to a song, When a Man Loves a Woman. And while they were both dancing, she heard a voice whispering to her, asking her to marry them. And she thought it was the music. She was so taken in by the music, enjoying it and dancing, that she just said yes. She didn't even question it. And when the song finished and she looked up at Dave and realised that was it. She was engaged. She says the line, but I think it was just the music. I think I would have said yes if I was dancing with Bloody Frankenstein. So we kind of see that she's not necessarily happy in this relationship. And when Frankie confronts her saying, "Are you telling me you have second thoughts?" she immediately changes the conversation and goes, "Oh, that'll do. Come on, I just want to get out there and dance." Moving on from that, moving on from me yapping about my girl Linda, we see the ending scene. The men start coming back from the club, and then Eddie runs in right at the end and goes, "We know. Linda is bloody here." And that's the end of Act 1. Okay, so already you can clearly see that there's a lot more from Act 2. There was in fact exactly double. There was only 6 points, I think even 5, so it may even be more than double. So we've got a lot to go through here. But starting straight off, the women back from the dancing. Linda's really enjoying herself. She's not thinking about all of the stuff from before. She's putting that out of her mind. She's having a fun night on the dance floor with her mates. We see the boys. As we know from Act 1, they are aware that Linda is here. Eddie does not like Linda, so he's like, "Oh, she's already been a controlling wife. What's she doing here?" Misogynistic man type stuff. Then, point 3. The girls, except for Linda, discover Dave's here. They know the boys, they've seen the boys, they know they've discovered Dave's here. And in Act 1, we know that the girls do not want that, because they all believe in this old kind of wives' tale, kind of warning thing that Maureen said in Act 1, which is, "A bride and groom on wedding's eve should never the other one perceive, for if they do, they will live to see a marriage without harmony." Without harmony. Yes, so they all do that. So they bring Linda in from the dance floor. Linda's like, "Guys, I was enjoying myself. I need to stop doing that dance move. I apologise. I'm sorry." But they're all like, "Linda, we need to go." And she's like, "Why? I'm having fun." And they're like, "Dave's here." But they're all convinced, "You can't be here on the same night as Dave is. We need to go." And she's like, no. She doesn't see the point in it. This leads to a massive argument, specifically between her and Bernie, and Carol piping in at points. But yeah, so it ends with Linda saying, "Well, I'm going back out there. I'm not going. Who's coming with me?" And all of the girls turning their backs on her. But moves on to this next point. Linda finally reunites with Peter, who, as we know from the context point I gave, Linda and Peter are exes. So they reunite, hug, it's cutesy, but Linda specifically does not mention the fact, "Oh, by the way, just in case you were wondering, I'm actually getting married tomorrow and this is actually my hen night." Because why would she do that? Why would she do that? Leads to Bernie, well, specifically Francis, walks past them, and obviously being Linda's best friend for ages, knows about Peter, knows who he is. So she's like, and is immediately like, "Girls, we got an issue. She's seen somebody," and they're like, "What?" Not. We have another intrusion from my dog. I apologise. Continuing on with my little helper here. Frances knows, and she's like, guys, she's just seen her ex-boyfriend Peter, and they were like, oh shit. So they go out onto the dance floor and like, we've got to fucking stop him. Which then goes on to this point. The girls come back from the bathroom, going back into the bathroom and go, the fuck is this bitch doing? She's dancing with her ex-boyfriend the night before she gets married. And then, as Bernie is talking about Linda, who shows up but Linda herself, and goes, great. They have yet another argument, this time about Peter. And when Bernie says, but don't you realise you're getting married tomorrow? Linda has the line, well, what makes you think I'm still going through with it? Boom. Big plot point. Linda is officially admitted to wanting to call off the wedding. Obviously, as she walks off after telling Bernie this, the girls are like, what the fuck are we going to do? And Bernie's like, well, we've got to tell Eddie. We've got to tell him what she said to us at the wedding is off. So it's all up in the air. There's all a lot of drama going bloody on. To the next bit. Linda and Peter back together again, but they end up arguing about everything that's happened between them. We get a bit more of backstory. We know that Peter asked Linda to go with him, but she didn't love him enough at that point, so didn't think that she could just go with him. But has it since ended up kind of trapped in this relationship with Dave. So they have this whole argument where basically Peter is the one person who tells her and makes her actually think about what she's doing and says to her, you're not happy. You know you're not happy. This isn't what you wanted for yourself. And while Linda is still trying to convince herself that this is what she wants, and he doesn't know her, she knows he's right. And they have this bit of a connection. She finally admits to Peter that I am actually getting married tomorrow. And then they kiss. Which, slightly controversial. But after they kiss, she's like, what have I just done? And has all of this regret and doesn't still feel like she can move on yet. But after they have this kiss, we see the boys finally come back. Peter goes into the men's bathroom. And then Eddie, knowing what's going on, goes, mate, and does his alpha male violence, masculinity type shit. And literally, physically chucks Peter out of the bathroom and tells him to leave. And Peter runs away into the van. Then this moves on to this point. Linda's back in the bathroom, kind of collecting herself after everything that's happened. And then Bernie enters. And is immediately like, Maureen, go tell Eddie she's in here. And they get into an argument again where Bernie's like, you can't just go away and start talking to your ex-boyfriend because you're having second thoughts. Like, every girl has second thoughts, but you still marry them. And Linda's trying to explain that at this point, she's still going to marry Dave. She's going to marry Dave because she thinks that that's the best thing for her to do. And then, at this point, Eddie bursts into the women's bathrooms and screams at Linda. And Linda, who is quite a strong-willed character, stands up to him, looks him in the eyes and said, piss off, little man. Looking down there. Looking down there, as she flipping should. But Eddie, being this angry character, when Linda starts to walk away, grabs her and flings her into the back around, out of the, she's going into the bathroom stalls at this point, flings her back around and screams at her saying, you can't do this. And Linda, being scared, as she rightfully is, just says, yes. And for the rest of that scene, when the boys leave and the girls are all like, yeah, like, Eddie was right though, but it's fine. We're going to have a good rest of our night. Let's go somewhere else. Linda's just like, yeah, like she's out of it. She's kind of disassociated because all of this stuff has happened. But they all go to leave the bathroom. And obviously both the groups of boys and girls are kind of there together. So they interact and we see the couples form. So there's a couple between Bernie and Eddie, the kind of two alphas. Then there's a couple between Carol and Robbie, and then there's a and then there's a couple with Francis and Cav, and then as a final couple, Maureen and Billy. So they're all in these kind of couples, and suddenly Linda is on her own, whereas before they were all protecting her because Dave was out, so they were trying to protect her from not seeing him. She's left on her own because they're all literally making out in these couples, and she looks around and she sees Dave on the floor slumped and goes up to him and is trying to get him to look at her, and he does, and she has a moment where she finally makes her decision and steps back, gives him the ring and walks away. Starts to run away when Bernie comes, realises what she's doing, tries to stop her, and Linda runs round the back, crawls out of the men's window and crawls away. Literally crawls away. All of them try and chase after her, and then the final line about Linda is that she's gotten into the van. And so it ends with Eddie grabbing Dave off the floor, saying everyone's left us, and leaving. And that is how the play ends. Everyone else going off into the cabs, going home after a hectic night, and Linda escaping from something that she didn't want for her life. So that is the full timeline of Stags and Hens. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was informative and I didn't just yap at you about useless pieces of information. But yeah, I think it kind of shows the understanding I have, which I'm not surprised about considering how many times we've been practicing this play at this point and we've read through it. But I've really loved this play so far. And yes, so I hope you can see all of the amazing plot points throughout and you get a sense of the timeline.